afternoon or good evening. Welcome to the Business of Art. I'm Rhonda Welsh. I'm the alumni officer for the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts here at Wayne State University, and I am so excited to see you all here today. This is an event that we're holding just to really engage our community, engage our alums. Okay, let me see a show of hands of Wayne State University alums. Oh, okay. And so now, because I'm rowdy, I want you to start clapping because you're Wayne State alum. Because I like noise. Once again, I am so happy that you're here, and I'm not going to make a lot of remarks. We're gonna just get started. I want to introduce the Dean of the College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts, Dr. Matthew Seeger, and he's going to just say a couple of words to me.
Thanks, Rhonda. Good evening. Welcome to the Business of Art. As Rhonda mentioned, I am the dean of the coolest, most creative college on campus. It's a real honor to be a dean of this college, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you this evening. We're so happy that you've chosen to spend your time with us to discuss a topic that is becoming increasingly important to modern artists, and I will also say to Detroit. Obviously, from the turnout this evening, we have touched a real need. From Berry Gordy and Smokey Robinson's Motown to Dudley Randall's Broadside Press to the Cass Corridor artists and Mary Chase Perry Stratton's Pewabic Pottery, Detroit's creative class has always had an inherent interest in understanding the importance of entrepreneurship. Creativity runs deep here as manifest in great art and in great organizations. This deeply rooted entrepreneurial spirit is simply part of how we do things in Detroit. We are makers, creators, and entrepreneurs. I recently saw a t-shirt with the slogan, "Detroit hustles harder," and it's true, we do. Many artists, however, are not necessarily well equipped with the tools to hustle, not always effectively. And that's why forums like today are so important. Through our College of Fine Performing and Communication Arts alumni office, we wanted to give you the opportunity to network and have some of your questions and concerns addressed about the challenges and potential dichotomy of being an inspired creative person and an effective entrepreneur, being an artist and a business person. We continue to have an interest in our alumni even after they graduate and pay their last tuition bill. We want to be an ongoing part of your success. The development of social media has created many opportunities for artists to promote their work. But even with these digital tools, face-to-face contact is still essential. And one of the places that we have at Wayne State University that helps direct budding creative entrepreneurs is the Blackstone Launchpad. This Wayne State University-sponsored business incubator offers career guidance, resources, and advice to entrepreneurs, innovators, and inventors at Wayne State University. Their primary mission is to show Wayne State students that starting a new venture is a legitimate career path and an attainable reality. Aubrey Agee is the Senior Program Administrator for Blackstone Launchpad, and he's here today to say a few words. Aubrey?
Thank you, Dean Seeger, Dean Teeny, Rhonda, the Alumni Affairs. This is a wonderful event and a great panel. I know some of them. Don't hold that against me. Well, we are the Blackstone Launchpad, and anybody that has any idea, we want you guys to come see us. We want to help you nurture that idea, turn it into a business reality, connect you with resources. We don't want you to think, oh, I can't do it, or there's a big hill that I can't get over, or I can't find sales. Whatever issue you may have in starting out in your business, in your career, we want to help you with that. So we're in the undergraduate library. Come on by anytime. We're going to be closed down for 2 weeks, though, so not anytime, after the 13th of July. But again, this is an awesome event, and thank you for having me.
We really appreciate Aubrey and Blackstone. He's been a great resource for our CFPCA students and students throughout the university. We've partnered together on a number of programs such as this, so we're just delighted to have this resource at the university. Blackstone is going to help us to ensure that the momentum for this evening's discussion does not stop. We aren't going to be able to answer every question you have during our panel discussion, even though we have great panelists. But Aubrey and the team from Blackstone is working closely with our alumni office to create a web page where we will address many of the unanswered questions through a Business of the Arts discussion site. We hope to keep this conversation going. Because you registered for today's events, you will receive a notice from the CFPCA Alumni Office on how to access that site. We want to make sure that this momentum continues. And speaking of appreciation, I would like to especially acknowledge the Coleman Foundation for their support of this event. And I would especially like to acknowledge Rhonda Welsh, our new college alumni officer. Herself twice an alum of this college, Rhonda is an incredible resource for us. When Rhonda joined us about 3 months ago, we spoke about programming for alumni and the shape that programming might take, and we specifically talked about programming around arts and entrepreneurship. So thank you, Rhonda, for making this happen and for arranging such a wonderful program. Just a few other folks to acknowledge. We have several folks from the Dean's office here. Dennis Teeney was wandering around, an artist and an entrepreneur and an associate dean who keeps me on track. We have Kelly Driscoll and Leslie Hart. Ty Stevenson is here from the alumni office. Russ Miller, a faculty member in music. Tom Przuski from the art department. Kim Piper-Aiken from the Department of Communication. Beth Barton is here. Beth Barton is sort of the go-to person in the college with all kinds of great ideas. So these are other resources for you to connect with and network. Thank you very much again for coming, and I can't wait to hear all the answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean Seeger. I'm not ashamed to say in front of you all that Dean Seeger was actually my favorite professor in the communications department, and I say that publicly not just because he is my boss's boss, but because he actually was. And I'd also like to acknowledge Laura Orm, who is our director of major gifts and my boss over at CFPCA, who allowed me to just kind of run free when I came with her to her with a crazy idea after I'd been there, like, I don't know, 2 weeks. And I'm like, let's do a thing. And she's like, okay, go do it. So I'm really pleased. You know, once upon a time, I was a full-time artist. And when I really had difficulty figuring out how to get the business part down. I had the creative part down, I had the promotion part down, but I really wanted to give everything away. And I think that that's one of the things that artists, we suffer from. We just kind of want to give it all away. So I really hope that you get some great ideas from this today. I hope that you take advantage. Oh, I don't know where Aubrey went. Where's Aubrey in his cool hat? Anyway, Aubrey from Blackstone, I hope you take advantage of Blackstone. I hope you take advantage of Hive. I hope you take advantage of the ideas that you hear from these artists and creatives today. Also, I'd like you to be tweeting and Instagramming and Facebooking about this. It's Pound Business of Art. So tell somebody that you're here. Take some pictures and where are your phones and stuff? I'm serious. Where are your phones? I'm serious. Get your phones out. It's # Business of Art. And so Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and tell someone that you're here so that we can do some more things like this. So without me saying any more, I'd like to introduce the moderator of this panel. When we were looking for someone who could lead this discussion, one of the first names that came to mind and one of the first people that folks mentioned to me was Adriel Thornton, and I hadn't actually met Adriel, but for some reason we go all the same places, so I'd see him in the bookstore, I'd see him at the coffee shop, and I've come to find out he's just an amazing person. He's a music and production director for the Detroit Electronic Music Festival. He's the founder of FreshCorp, and he is really a thought leader in this area, and so I'm really honored that this Wayne State alumnus would come back and do this for us. So please join me in welcoming Adriel Thornton.
Hello. It's good to be back at Wayne. I graduated, strangely enough, just a few years ago in 2009 from the School of Communication with a PR degree, which doesn't sound very creative, but trust me, it is. So I'm excited to be here. I wanted to be here when Rhonda asked me. I said yes without hesitation because working in the arts. I'm an event producer, so I like to say that my art is creating places and creating environments. Working in that field, one of the things that I've witnessed has been artists struggling to figure out how to be able to live from what it is that they do and what they love. So I think it's an important conversation, and thank you, Rhonda, for inviting me. Thanks everyone for putting this panel together, and thank you guys for coming. Just one little thing, while you're out there Instagramming and tweeting and stuff, can you silent your phones? That would be really hot. All right, so, so right now I just want to introduce the panelists. Most of them are friends of mine, and that's not why they were asked to be here, though. It just worked out that way. Again, Rhonda said it, we know a lot of the same people. And I'll let them introduce themselves. First of all, April Boyle. April, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Okay, this is the first time I'm being mic'd, so give me a second to adjust. I am a Wayne State grad, although not from the College of Art. I have a bachelor's in anthropology. And I have a I don't really consider myself an artist, although when I look at my path to where I am now, it is filled with creative endeavors. So I have a history with the kind of indie rock scene in Detroit, but then I got married and had a bunch of kids, and I was like, why do you have to stop rocking just because you have kids, right? You can still have that fun, creative side. And we've done some traveling, and there were kids and family events in Chicago and other places that we had been, all centered around music. So I started a kids and family music event in town called the Family Hootenanny. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of it. We produced a couple CDs. Then I was in a mom band for a little while called the Mydols. We had some minor success. We opened up for the B-52s, which is pretty awesome. And we were on a TV show called Gene Simmons Family Jewels. I don't know. Anyway. That's kind of funny. But so now what I do, I'm director of small business initiatives at Hive. Has anybody heard of? I see some Build grads in the audience, actually. And I run the entrepreneurship programming. So I was also a yoga teacher. I did a lot of kind of independent contractor work, small entrepreneurial endeavors around town. And my passion is really brick and mortar retail, passion, lifestyle, mom and pop shops, placemaking, and community urban entrepreneurship. And we give people the tools to explore their ideas and turn their ideas into reality. And a lot of the businesses that come through our program are creative endeavors, and we want to help you guys make a living doing what you love, you know, having purpose and meaning in your life, and making a living doing that. So I think we're going to get more into that as we move on, and I'm just happy to be here. Thanks.
Cool. Thanks, April. The next panelist is Mr. Brent Smith, the man.
My name is Brent Smith. I am a recent graduate from Wayne State. I graduated in Africana Studies. My bachelor's is in Africana Studies, so not the communication arts program. But I am happy to be here. I'm happy to share my best practices. I am excited to share about how passionate I am about inventing new systems in Detroit. So the crazier the ideas, the better. When I speak and when I talk on this panel, I'm speaking from a perspective from a performing artist. And I am sensitive to the needs of performing artists in Detroit. I am in a group called Pasalacqua, which I'm known for more. I'm also in a group called Coleman Young. And so I consider myself a working musician in Detroit. However, I am not trained musically, so I don't want to offend anyone. I am not a pianist, I am not a drummer. I consider my voice as my instrument. And I use my voice in many different ways, and that includes the internet. And so part of my work is also digital work, And I think there's a lot of room for growth and development and mentorship around how we can amplify our performing artists in a really cool, creative way. And so I am looking forward to this discussion. I am grateful that Wayne State has me on this panel, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we can kind of come together and juice up. So I'm excited.
Nice, thank you, Brent. Dominic Ariano.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic Arellano. I'm the Executive Director of Forward Arts here in Detroit. I graduated from Wayne State with a music business degree. I went through the music department here, but I would not call myself a musician either. Don't ask me to sing, please. But like Brent said, I kind of think of my voice as my instrument, and some of the things, I'm an event producer, sort of like Adriel, and run programs with Forward Arts. So I use my work as sort of my tool to sort of to bring my voice out as well. Currently, I am the chair of the Young Opera House Council at the Detroit Opera House. I sit on the Belle Isle Conservancy Immersion Patrons Council, and also sit on the advisory board for CCS's CPAD program, which is kind of like their public art arm. In the past, I've worked for the Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the Movement Festival, Red Bull, Harmony House, St. Andrews Hall, you name it, I've probably worked there over the years at this point. And so we sort of position Forward Arts in between what I would say sort of the graffiti artists and the DIA. We sort of work in that middle ground. We know how to work with the DIA, and we also understand how to work with more of the street artists. And sometimes we connect them, and sometimes we disconnect them when they need to be as well, when their work calls for it. So as Brent said, using my voice, I always try and connect these sort of opposite sides in Detroit's arts ecology, and making different connections and finding those common threads, whether it's somebody like the Belle Isle Conservancy who might want art on the island. Forward Arts has helped produce the Belle Isle art exhibit in the past. So we kind of work with a lot of different people. I mean, we kind of revolve around visual arts, music, and culinary arts. We feel like those three go really well together, but we've worked on dance projects in the past, and all kinds of things. We also get serviced out for projects. I think Matthew Barney was actually our first client, which is crazy to think about. If you don't know who Matthew Barney is, I highly encourage you to look him up. He's just a really phenomenal artist, and we were really lucky enough to have him as our first client. But yeah, I hope we kind of talk about all kinds of things, both from an artist's point of view sometimes, maybe an event producer or an arts administrator. Visual arts and music can be very sort of two different animals and needs and things like that as well. So I hope I can bring in some context into, I guess, the conversation and pushing it. I've been to so many of these panels over the years, and I think a few of these people have probably been to some of the panels over the years, and sometimes they get a little stale because they talk about some of the same things all over again. So I feel like the arts here in Detroit right now, though, I think we're ready to push things forward, and we're ready for that next conversation about what's next, instead of talking about what's happened or what's happening. I mean, you have to have those conversations as well. You can't know where you're going unless you know where you're from. But I think we need to talk more about what's next, and push things so that it's better for everybody, for the event producer, for the artists, and someone like myself who's art administrator.
Cool.
That's it. Thank you.
Cool. I can guarantee you will not be talking about gentrification. We talk about something different. All right, Jocelyn Rainey.
Hi, my name is Jocelyn Rainey, and I graduated from Wayne State in 1998 with a Master's of Arts. I am the owner of J. Rainey Galleries, which was located in the Eastern Market area for 13 years. I'm a visual artist. I show nationally, locally. I'm also an associate dean at Wayne County Community College. I'm the district curator at Wayne County Community College. I'm a curator for 5 galleries over there. I am the founder of Finding Mona Lisa, Urban Students Become Global Scholars, where I take high school students from the city of Detroit to different parts of the world to become global citizens. I'm also the founder of Art and Odd Places 313, where we pop up like on the People Mover with Marion Hayden, Singora Reed, and you might see us at Belle Isle Park, you might see us anywhere. I hope that I'm able to give you some insight on how to navigate through the art world, through this thing they call the art world, and especially when it comes to business. As a gallery owner, I represented a lot of artists, locally, nationally, and internationally. One thing I felt that I should do is keep everybody honest, keep the artists honest, and keep the patron honest. Businesses, when they came to give students or give artists a place in their business to hang artwork for exposure, I shut that down. I would lease you the artwork or rent you the artwork. Or if you bought a piece of artwork, but we have to keep everybody honest, and we have to understand that art is a business. And for it to be a business, and for you to be a viable citizen, as a taxpaying citizen, you need to generate money. And you should look at this like a Louis Vuitton piece. Like, wouldn't nobody ask Louis Vuitton to sit his purses right here just so people could look at them? So if you're not buying them, he wouldn't be there, you know? So you have to, and he's mass produced, and yours is a one of a kind, so you should look at yours even more important, and understand that the art that you're creating, the music that you're creating, the poetry that you're creating, that the world needs you. This cultivates the world. If you stop creating, the world stops. All you have to do is look around. The world needs everything that you're creating. So you should understand how important that is, how important you are to the world on this day. Okay? Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. Wow, that's really, I mean, wow, I'm feeling inspired right now by just the panel alone. How many of you out there would consider yourselves artists, creatives, entrepreneurs? Everybody. Okay, perfect. All right. So, you know, Jocelyn and the other panelists really hit on an important topic, which is, you know, you as an artist or as a creative person, valuing your work and understanding that it has value in the first place. I think one of the first questions I want to ask you guys is, how does an up-and-coming artist, or even an established artist, for the sake of artists, transition from the basement, you know, or the studio to business, and exactly what does that mean, you know? Anyone, you guys can just randomly answer one at a time.
I'll go first. I think, I think it kind of depends on some, you know, if we're talking in the context of the Detroit arts sort of ecology here, you know, in a geographic area, I think if you're a visual artist or a musician, I think those answers might be a little bit different. Or a poet, or any of the art mediums. But I remember something that you had just said just made me sort of think about it, and it relates to the question. I remember my friend Sarah Lipinski, who now lives in New York. I remember she had this really great quote over Facebook, of course, Detroit's #1 news source. But her quote was essentially that, you know, if you want to make money, if you want to live beyond, if you want to pay, you know, you need to pay your bills and things like that. But if you want more than that, if you want to you actually want to save for retirement, or you want some health care or some, you know, dentistry, those sort of things, you really need to export your product in a way. you need to get out of the city in a way. I always encourage people to get out of the city, and not that I want them to leave. But I think it's good that people can sort of go somewhere else, maybe for a couple of years to New York and cut their teeth on something else and come back. And maybe they go to Johannesburg in Africa for a couple months for something. But you really need to export your product. I mean, it's hard to make a living if you're just doing it here in the city, if you're just gigging here in the city, or if you're just selling your CDs here in the city. If you want to grow beyond, I mean, the density is just not here yet, especially, you know, Detroit City proper. It's just a huge city.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I'm going to play devil's advocate here,
Yeah.
or disagree with him completely and say stay, but look at this as a region. We're a region of 3 to 5 million people, and we're one of the richest regions in the country, and we're a little bit behind the East Coast and the West Coast as far as appreciating the arts and supporting the arts. And so a little bit of it is about education and inclusivity both ways, right? We have to open up Detroit and the suburbs and get more of that, us in the same rooms together, supporting each other. There is enough money here to support all of you artists. There is. That's my opinion. But I would say another thing that one of my favorite quotes that I say in the build class is, you have to start somewhere, not everywhere. And that's a problem. I know for me, I had, I'm a yoga teacher, I'm doing, you know, I'm a singer in a mom band, now I run a pop-up restaurant called Komodo Kitchen, trying all of these different things, what's gonna stick. But if you're really gonna make a living and do something, you can't execute all your ideas at once. You have to break it off into little pieces, step by step, and start somewhere. Not at your 10-year vision, but at your today vision, and one step at a time.
Yeah, I mean, Grace Lee Boggs is someone who I was introduced to maybe about 4 years ago while I was still at Wayne State. And she has a quote, if we're gonna use quotes, about what time is it on the clock of the world. And it's so important, I believe, when it comes to artistry and expression, that we capitalize on the time now. And so the time on the clock of the world is now. And so that mentality has allowed me to become very diverse in how I go about in expressing myself, my art, my kind of like my joy. I believe that for artists, I love being on stage. I love this moment right now. I really, you know, I kind of want some music to start playing. I want to start dancing. You know, it's electrifying for me to be up on this stage in this capacity. However, I also feel like it's important for us to have these type of conversations. I think it's important for artists to align themselves with core values. Once your medium is found, I believe it's very important to come out of the basement with, like, you know, I have order for myself and I have order for my art. I know what I want. And, you know, that type of mindset, that kind of like, you know, this now mindset, other people are having that mindset right now. People are doing it in Brooklyn. People are doing it in Oakland. So why are we behind? And so I just believe that we just haven't had enough conversations about coalition building. I believe we haven't had enough conversations about who are our dancers in Detroit? Where's our dance team? I know Hardcore Detroit. Who's Hardcore Detroit working with? Where are our rappers and hip hop artists? Where are our producers? And so I'm sure, like, if we kind of like took a tally in the room, we'll have like a fresh balance. We'll have a fresh balance of people who do this and people who do that. But I think what's important is that we know what our partners do. We know what people do in Detroit. And it's not I don't think we need to kind of like, you know, break out the scroll and list all of our accomplishments, because I know, like, people in Detroit, we work in a coded way. We work in a way where it's like, you might not know what I do, but like allow for a connectedness that is like through the medium. And so again, like from that basement to, you know, pushing it out there as a business, like what are your core values for your medium? and find others who are also aligned with your core value and also aligned with your medium. And so I think a lot of it has to do with networking and getting out. I know it was a challenge for some of the artists that are in this room to come here and hear me speak. I know that that's a problem. You know, sometimes I don't want to hear people mentor to me. And so I think we need to be honest, we need to be transparent, and that is how I've been able to network in Detroit. I've also had I have an innate ability to communicate. And I believe that we need to get back to the point where we can kind of handle our own business, and we are self-sufficient. I am self-sufficient as an artist because I know the tools, I have the resources, I can do the work that the manager does, I can do the work that the publicist does.
I'm sorry, I'm going to on occasion interrupt
Yeah.
people. Just because you hit on a certain point that I want to address, and that is, so it's, you know, we as established, if you can call us that, established artists, have some of those tools already. But how does someone actually come up, how do you get to that point where you actually have that skill set to recognize yourself as an artist, or to be able to say, when you talk about going to networking, an example would be, first of all, convincing yourself that you are an artist, you know, and that is what you do. So that when you network, you don't tell people that you work at, you know, the coffee shop or whatever, but that you actually are a painter, or that you are a graffiti artist, or whatever the case may be. So I guess the question I'm asking is, it's all great once you have those skills, the things that you were talking about, but how does one get to that point?
I would say one gets to that point after their 10,000 hours in the basement. Okay. I mean, my experience was I was rapping on a microphone that had been chopped off, and I was running it through my computer, and I was recording songs, and I learned how to kind of record my own music and record my own sound. And I know hundreds of people that do that, and I personally think that we need to kind of sharpen. I think we need to sharpen listenership and kind of allow ourselves to give what we have inside. Personally for me, I'm not happy if I'm not creating. I'm not happy if I'm not creating.
Well, I appreciate everything that you're saying. When you talk about the basement, I don't think that you have to come out the basement. I think the time that you come out the basement is when you don't have any more room to create in the basement. I think the basement is a great place to create. There's no overhead, you live there, You're comfortable, But I do think that you have to, at some point, nobody can tell you this. You have to recognize that your artwork is important and that you have something to say, and that is your medium to say what you have to say to the world. And some people are not business people. They're not going to organize. They're not going to go to a project management class and things like that. But then you align yourself with people that do that. You can get a teenager in your family to organize whatever you have and put you on social media, and you will blow up, okay? Because that's all they do. So instead of letting them go work at McDonald's, you could pay them $7.50 an hour to do your social media. You know what I'm saying? So you just have to work with what you have. I think that you work where you're comfortable, and you deal with people that you're comfortable with. It's no sense in forcing yourself on anybody or letting anybody force their ideas on you. But you have to be comfortable in your own skin and with your own creating. Oh, thank you.
So earlier we had mentioned that there was a conversation about Detroit itself or the region, and some of the challenges of being an artist here. And I just want to say, what is that balance between one of the things that I see in Detroit is the creative community. We work on barter systems a lot, where where it's you do this for me, I do this for you. It's an exchange of services as opposed to what we all really need, which is cash, because you can't barter with DTE. You cannot, or the water department, apparently.
Right.
You said we weren't gonna go
We weren't going to go there, but I had to sneak it in. So you can't barter with, these are very serious issues that a lot of people in the creative community face. It becomes a balancing act of, how do I live off of what it is that I do when the people that I am connected to, where it's a barter system, which is very, I've benefited from the barter system. I've participated in it. I've given my things away in exchange for other things. So, is the barter system versus getting paid an issue that's distinct to Detroit? And is that something that, taking a temperature of the room or of the panelists, is that something that we even need to be concerned with here?
I think another word for barter is collaboration. And I think collaboration is key to a lot of things. I think Jocelyn said it and Brent said it, is that broadening your network and creating coalitions and collaboration with other people. If you are not so business-minded, but you partner with somebody who has those skills, it's an important part of the equation, for sure. It can't be all of it, as you said, because, unfortunately or fortunately, we live in America that uses the cash dollar for stuff. But that is a huge part of the equation. Building networks, broadening your partnerships. We, in the Build class, many of our Build alumni collaborate with each other. We do pop-ups all over town, Build Bazaar. April from Good Cakes and Bakes has a storefront on Livernois, and I can't even name how many different collaborations she's had with different Build grads who have gone through there. It's super, super important for us. And I think, what is unique and not a negative is that this is a very supportive community. We want you to succeed. And we're open to sharing best practices and ideas, and it's a market that's in transition in a lot of ways. So not in the artist community, small business, lots of we have an emergency manager, the water department, blah blah blah. I could go on, but besides all of that, we're thriving. The art community, the small business community is thriving. There's so much opportunity here. So that's my 2 cents.
Did anyone else want to contribute to that?
I don't know what it's like in other cities. It's kind of hard to make that comparison. Everyone calls Detroit the big city, small, or small community. So maybe it happens more here in Detroit, just because maybe the artist community is tighter, and people like Brent, who, and all three of you just sort of mentioned it, that get out there and network with other people, even other dancers and things like that, like Brent had said. So, and we all, Adriel, you mentioned, I think I know everybody on the panel when you walked up here. So, that kind of speaks volumes in a lot of ways. And if you don't know that person, it's like 1 degree of separation half the time, right? So, maybe it does. I don't know. I don't know about other cities. I only know about Detroit.
My experience with Detroit and getting paid has went from everything from food to drugs to, hey, I can give you a ride home, I'll fill your tank up. It gets real. It gets real in Detroit. And I've been in situations to where, I just feel like I'm passing this buck around. I'm going to support Doc Illingsworth and give him $10 at his show, and Doc Illingsworth is going to turn around and give me $10 after he comes to my show. There is no, to me, that's circulating the dollar, but that's not stimulating any type of economy base. And so my whole thing is this is not monopoly money. Give me more money. So, so that's when I started treating my art like a business, and I would apply. I applied and my partner, Brian Lackner from Passalacqua, began to apply for grants, looking for seed money, and being transparent about it. So I believe that it's kind of like, you know, what are you looking for in your medium? And what are the results that you're looking for? If you're looking for, you know, amplification, I'm gonna need money to amplify. I'm gonna need money for lights. I'm gonna need money to pay stage singers. I'm gonna need money to pay stage hands. It's expensive. And that is how I've been able to raise value for my show and for my art by kind of creating a diversified portfolio. So, you know, if someone says, hey, you know, can you do a show? It's like, well, what kind of show are you looking for? What kind of budget do you have? It's okay to have those conversations. It's okay to ask those questions. And a lot of times we feel cornered, or we feel like artists, we feel like we don't have an authority. And I feel like we do have the authority. We have the most authority because we have the voice. There will not be a show. There will not be a art series without our work. And so I think we need to organize what we want. And we need to organize our demands or our rider. And then that way we can avoid, you know, a crappy barter system.
I think that's really important. Did you want to say something?
Well, I wanted to say that, you know, with you giving your friend $10 and him giving you $10, that's great, because money is, you know, currency, it just moves. But what you have to do, where a lot of money is on an internet. And I'm not from the internet generation, but I was able to raise $20,000 in 29 days. So I know that there's money on there. And it's people that will give to you, but everybody doesn't have a lot of money. But if a lot of people give a little, then you have a lot. You know, so that's how we have to support each other. So if I buy a piece from you and you buy a piece, at that time I have the money to buy a piece from you. But when you have money, you have to buy a piece from me because I might be a little short that week. You see what I'm saying? So we have to look out for each other. And we have to also be able to say, hey, you want to go to such and such show? Instead of always just going there alone, you should invite people to people's shows and to their performances and to their galleries and things like that. That's how the money moves. You have to talk to the money, and the money moves, you know? If people don't know about your show, how can they, if they don't know about your art, how can they buy it? If they don't know that you're singing over here, how can I come see you? You know? So you have to get the word out. And I think that people will. It's better to get a lot of people with a little money than to try to get one person with a lot of money. See? Y'all understand what I'm talking about?
I think one of, you know, another challenge that artists face is, and again, this goes back to sort of the really identifying and valuing what they do as having value. You know, recognizing that what they do has value, and you know, sometimes it's a challenge for artists to address this issue of how much do I charge, how much is this worth. You know, I just did a painting, and you know, the gallery wants to sell it, but I'm not 100% sure how much, you know, I can get for this, or what I should be asking for it. You know, is it an overvalue? Is it an undervalue? Are there any resources or tools or anything like that that artists can actually start to address some of those things?
I think
or
that if
address those questions?
Yeah, I think that if you're dealing with a gallery, that the curator or the gallery owner is able to advise you on how much that your art is worth, because you're in business with the gallery owner. This is what you have to understand. If you're showing in a gallery and the gallery is getting 50% and you're getting 50%, this is a partnership. It's not that the gallery should take on all that they have to be the one to get all the clients there. It's a partnership. Everybody gets money if everybody puts in. You go get clients, they go get clients. So I think that if the gallery owner gives you some advice and says, well, I think that this piece will go for about 500 or 1,000, then don't you get offended by it, because they're looking at how long you've been painting, how much you sold, the market value of what's going on and how people are buying. And I think that you need to ask somebody, because you don't want to like price yourself out of the market. Because if you sell a piece that's 18 by 20 for at $1,000 one time, and then you never sell it again, then you price yourself out of the market. So I think that you should talk to people about that. Experts, not other artists. Talk to gallery owners and people like that.
I think there's different sort of formulas out there. Even I think, you know, people will sometimes say how many hours you've put into their materials and stuff like that. But I think at the end of the day, it's still about demand, right? I mean,
right. It's about demand.
It's still about whether that person's willing to spend $50 or $50,000,
right.
whether you spent 120 hours on something or 2 hours on something. It's at the end of the day, it's still kind of about demand, at least from a visual artist point of view. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a difficult thing. I mean, I would actually encourage artists to talk to other artists just to see about their experiences. I mean, I wouldn't explicitly just go on what other artists are saying, but I mean, for me, it's always about getting a lot of advice from a lot of different people, and usually everybody is right to a certain extent. And you know, you might, you know, the curator, you might think, okay, the curator is probably about 60% right, but you know, this other artist, you know, I feel like I'm sort of on the same wavelength as that person, so I might be able to price it up, you know, a little bit more than what the curator says, but it's always a balancing act. I mean, it's always a very different. It's different for each arts of the arts mediums. It's different for each of the artists and things like that. So I mean, it is a complicated sort of formula to try and work out. But I agree. I mean, I think talking to someone from sort of administrative point of view, so that they can tell you to go check out, you know, what Johnny sold his artist for over there, and see what kind of percentage he got. Maybe he got 70% from the curator and not 40% what they're offering you, or something like that. It's always a little bit different, I feel like.
It is, but my problem is that it's not a problem, but if you're at a gallery, that gallery wants you to make money, because that's how they make money. Right. So they're not going to lie to you. They're not going to say, oh, sell this at 100 so they can make $50. They're going to tell you exactly, because they get half of your money. So why would they lie to you? It's like getting a lawyer that you don't have to pay until he wins the case. Those are the type of lawyers you like, you know, because they're going to fight for you, because they get paid off of winning, right? So I think that those gallery owners that want to show your work, they're not going to price you out of the market. They're going to price you to where you can move artwork and you can build collectors and things like that, because that's what you want to build, people that collect your artwork. So they come back and over and buy artwork, you know. You don't want a customer that just get one and just go and never see you again. Okay.
I think it's also important to really know the numbers behind your work. So in the build class, we talk about a unit. We don't let anybody leave our class until they've defined what their unit is. So that sounds a little weird, but
project management.
I wasn't going to say anything.
Anyway, Daryl. So if your unit is a painting, if it's a piece of jewelry, is it a show? Is it an event? How many of those do you need to sell per year to feed yourself? You know, what is the profit margin there? If you don't like numbers, if you don't like paying bills, if you're gonna create a business out of your art, you're creating a whole nother entity to do that for, right? Mm-hmm. Knowing the numbers behind your work is essential. And I think what Brent has been saying is you gotta know what you want. You have to be organized. Nobody can tell you, right? So being very clear about that. I'm gonna make a living doing my art, and this is how much I need to be able to do that or to be successful. just having some kind of plan, and that's where the build class, I know I keep talking about that, that's what I do every day, but it gives, you don't build a house without a plan. You're not gonna build a business, whether it's an art business or any other business, without some kind of plan. And so that's important, knowing the numbers. And you're not gonna know it right away. Talking to gallery owners, talking to other artists, Google it. You know, there's a formula, whether you're doing pottery or painting or jewelry or textiles or whatever your medium is, there's tons of information out there to get you started. And then as you grow and get experience selling, then you can refine those numbers and make adjustments.
Cool. So another challenge along this sustainability path. I love the fact that you're saying you have to know the numbers and you really have to pay attention to that and what things are worth. But there's another group of people that are part of this equation, which is the consumer. Just your basic average everyday consumer, not someone who's involved in the arts, who's going to come to your show to support you because they're in the mix with you, but just your average consumer. Is it a challenge convincing your average consumer that because what you do is creative, that it actually has the same value as someone who works with their hands all day or who does like a labor-based job? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I would say there's a huge trend right now towards local, handmade, original stuff. People are tired of Walmart and they're tired of corporate America and they don't want to support that anymore. So there's a huge potential there to take advantage of that. That's my opinion. So maybe not every person, you know, the average consumer, but I'm telling you, I feel like the trend is definitely coming towards us making our own stuff again, having original, supporting you guys, and not the guys on Wall Street.
I mean, that's huge. I believe that there are people that work in Detroit. They live a double life, right? We work 9 to 5, and then we work 6 to 3 o'clock in the morning. And we don't get home, and we don't get rest, and we're irritable for that next day at work. I lived it for 2.5 years at the Secretary of State. I was not happy. I was in Clarkston, Michigan.
I remember that guy. Don't you remember
That's
that
me.
guy?
Oak Park, that was me. And at that time, it was almost like I was hiding a secret, to the point where I couldn't adjust in the systematic flow of going to work and then working even harder after I get off of work. And so I kind of changed my plan, and I said I'm gonna cut some of my expenses. I'm gonna eat out less. If I'm gonna be sustainable as an artist. And what was the original question? I do that a lot.
I was being creative with it, I just made it up.
Right.
It was really the dynamic between the consumer. The point I was trying to get at is, and I'll give you an example of what I was really trying to get at. If you are a writer, or you're composing a piece for someone. One of the challenges that I've encountered myself is that the person or your client, who's not necessarily a creative person who isn't involved in that field, doesn't actually recognize that what I was doing has value. Like my time is money. But I was being interviewed the other day, and one of the analogies I said was that if you have a contractor come to your house to redo your living room, it's most people acknowledge that the guy who's swinging that hammer is worth $25 an hour or whatever it is that it was. But they somehow there's a disconnect between associating that value with the architect or the interior designer who conceptualized it. Right. And in a sense, that contractor wouldn't be there if this artist hadn't done their job. So the question really had more to do with the getting that challenge of getting regular people to understand that what you do has value. Before you answer that, though, I just want to say really quickly that the Q&A is going to happen in just a little while. So if you have questions, if you could please fill them out on the cards that they gave you, and they'll come around to collect them. All right, so anyway, back to this, yeah.
So
Go ahead.
You want to go?
I mean, I definitely think that's an issue. I mean, I can't tell you how many times musicians, especially local musicians, obviously, have come to me and said, God, you know, this organization is asking me to perform for free. I mean, musicians get asked this all the time. You had noted earlier about the restaurants, you know, bringing in things and just sort of using it in that sort of way. I think even curators and art administrators sometimes will ask to get taken advantage of sometimes. And can you recommend, you know, or you program this for me? And I gotta, you know, negotiate all the contracts and all this other stuff, and they're looking at me like I'm not working. So yeah, I mean, I might not have a hammer in my hand, but I still have a pen in my hand, or you know, something's in my hand. I definitely feel like that's an issue. I mean, I think you can even see it in schools with arts education being taken out of, you know, the school systems and things like that. And I understand there's priorities and things like that, but I mean, they always, I mean, in the education world and in a lot of different worlds, you know, as the saying goes, one of the first things to go is always the arts. So there you go. I mean, I think that's, in a lot of ways, I think that's a telling thought behind that sort of attitude or that sort of mindset.
You know the difference between the plumber and the carpenter is that he wrote it down and told you how much you got to pay him before he did his work. We feel like, oh, well, should we tell him how much we're going to pay him? Should we ask him? See, he's confident about what you should pay him, and he's not going to start work either.
Right, okay.
So we need to be confident about that too. And that's where the business part of art comes in. That you don't waver, that you know your worth, and you feel like your creation is worth it. And then you write your numbers down, and you say, look, if I don't get half of this, I'm not even about to plug nothing in. Yeah. You see? I'm not going to pull out a paintbrush. Yeah. So that's what you have to do. That's what we all have to do.
And that's about knowing the numbers, what we talked about earlier.
The numbers,
you know?
and your audience, right? Who are you? You're not trying to convince so-and-so to want your stuff. You got to know who you are, so you know who your audience is, and then you can, you know, kind of let that go. Because not everybody, if you're going to be all things to all people, you're going to be nothing. You have to know who you're marketing to.
And from a performing arts perspective, it just seems like we've been so rooted in, you know, this narrative of Motown, and like that's the only thing that exists. And it's 2014. You know, I love Stevie Wonder. I love Marvin Gaye. It's like a huge production on Broadway. Cool. But like there are so many like great enclaves that are going on here in Detroit that's telling like history that we don't even talk about. And I mean, I love music history. I'm a Kresge Fellow, my Kresge Fellow, Marsha Music, has a deep history in Detroit music anthology. Her father was the record store owner in Black Bottom and collected archives of the people we don't talk about in Detroit. And so I feel like we're the people no one's talking about in Detroit. And so again, I can't stress enough that we need, as coalitions, we need to kind of come together, we need to unify. We don't have time for egos, we don't have time for sectarian discourse. You know, we need to come together and really, on a strong Detroit front, and say that we are the artists that we want to see. And I believe those artists are like here at Wayne State University, and I feel like those artists are, you know, stretch all 139 square miles of Detroit. I see them all the time, and I feel like that it really starts at a young age. And so one of the most therapeutic things that I've done recently as an artist is work with young people and work and mentor young people around art and programming and art direction. And what do you want to do? Do what you feel is like what you desire. And I think that's very important. And we're too busy like kind of like faced with you know, authority issues. And I'm kind of like the artist that's saying, no, like we need to unionize. Like why haven't artists unionized?
Yeah.
That's a really good question.
Is there
Yeah, I'm sure there's there's various guilds and organizations, but yeah, I hear you. I understand what you're saying. All right, well, let's get to some of the audience questions. All right. And the way, you know, this could be for whoever wants to answer it, but like we have a few to get through, so let's try to keep our answers a little short. First question, don't know exactly who this is from, but what is the toughest business lesson you've learned as an artist?
That everybody doesn't like your artwork.
Okay.
Yeah, you gotta bring that ego down. Everybody's not gonna like your artwork. I remember I was showing and I was like, because you gotta have ego to put your stuff on the wall and charge $1,000 and think somebody's supposed to pay for it. You know what I'm saying? But I was standing in the gallery and these ladies were standing by my artwork and they was like, my kids could have did that. And somebody walked up, hey, Jay Rainey, and they turned around. And I said, oh, well, thank you for the compliment, you know. Because Picasso said that to be able to create, you have to dig down deep and get the child in you. So, yeah, your kids could probably use those colors, but they don't have enough information to make that artwork, you know. But that was a big blow to me. Like, I was like, why they don't like my art? They talking about some kids. But art is subjective, and it's personal. Like, when I had my gallery and I was starting off new collectors, they was like, well, what should I buy? What should I buy? Buy what you like, because you got to look at it. You know what I'm saying? You might not want to look at a Jacob Lawrence. You're going to look at that and tell me to come back and get that because you don't like the colors. So buy what you like. So you have to understand that everybody's not going to like your artwork, and it's okay because you don't like everything. So when you find, you know, just like you said, when you find your voice, when you find your audience, then that's what you go for. And you make it affordable for your audience, for them to be able to afford to put it on their walls, okay? If all the garbage collectors is your audience, if you make garbage cans and they like, oh, I love that, I love that. But if you charge $1,500, they can't buy that, you see? And nobody else is gonna buy it because they don't like it. So you have to make it affordable for your audience.
I'd say just, you know, you're going to get punched in the mouth. You're going to get knocked down. You know, you're going to be angry at the Secretary of State. You're going to want to keep on rocking even though you're a mom. You know what I mean? Like you're going to get knocked down over and over and over again. You might have really great friends stab you in the back along the way. Everyone's shaking their head up here. and it sucks. I mean, it really sucks. And there are times where, like, you just feel like, oh, man, I really just let someone down, or I'm so mad at so-and-so because they really screwed this up. But you continually have to pick yourself up. I mean, drive for me is like one of the biggest things for any sort of career, really. Because in any career, you're always going to get knocked down. But I think in the arts, I think it's a little bit different because I think as artists and even as creators sometimes, or if you're a leader, it can feel a little isolated.
Yeah.
You know, you feel like you're just in your head a lot. And it's just, you're talking to yourself, and you're like, am I crazy? Or, you know, you're not. You might be a little bit, but we're all a little crazy, you know, and it's okay to talk to yourself, you know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like, you're gonna get knocked down over and over again. Just make sure you know, get back up. Keep on getting back up. That's the best thing I could ever say to anybody.
Yeah. For me, I think the toughest part is respectability. I feel like there are politics when it comes to, you know, my art form in hip hop and rap. And, you know, many times people think, like, you know, in ways it's true that, you know, hip hop isn't an attack on public space. Like, we all up in your face, you know, we here, right? And I think that, you know, dealing with that, we're talking about corporate risk. When we're talking about giving money to me, giving money to hip-hop artists, giving money to people that have, you know, very extravagant ideas, that is a corporate risk. And so from a business perspective, I would say, you know, respectability is tough.
Do you have a no-fly zone?
I have a no-fly zone. I have a no-fly zone.
Very few people got that. Okay, that was
I got it.
based on something that happened with some rappers last week, so. April, did you want to take a stab, or should I go on to the next question?
I was just going to say failing you know? Sometimes you're gonna try something and it's not gonna work out, or you have to know when to walk away from a project when it's just not serving you anymore, even though it's your baby and you love it. I mean, I have never walked away from my children. But never mind. Okay, so, but the Family Hootenanny thing, I had to walk away from it. It served its purpose, its timing. My kids were getting older. They were hating me for dragging them there. I tried to find somebody to take it over, and it didn't work, and I just had to be okay with letting it rest. Or I would drive myself crazy trying to make this thing work, and it just wasn't working. So being okay with failing, being okay with this whole word called pivoting, and now I don't even look at it as a failure. It was a stepping stone on my path for like where I'm at today, even though back then I probably wasn't feeling it. But everything that's happening, and I'm starting to get like spiritual or something, but that's okay, Jocelyn went there, happens for a reason, and it's get back up and add it to your resume, add it to your repertoire, use it in your art.
Cool. All right, so the next question is, should I form a for-profit company or a nonprofit in order to pursue my art, and then what are the advantages of each? If you guys have a thought on that?
Yikes.
So I actually started Forward Arts as an L3C, 2010 actually. We just recently kind of starting to transform into a nonprofit. So I feel like I can sort of speak to that to a certain extent. I mean, if you're an individual artist, doing a nonprofit can be very, very, very hard, and a lot of time and a lot of energy and a lot of paperwork and a lot of crap you probably don't want to do. Crap that I don't want to do, frankly. But if you're an artist, yeah, I mean, I would definitely just keep it pretty simple as an LLC, frankly, and unless you're, Warhol or something, you can create a Warhol Foundation or something crazy, but even that doesn't really benefit. I mean, Warhol would, stick as an LLC. Yeah, it's just too much.
And find partners that are great nonprofits. This is
for arts.
Yeah, for arts. When we talk about the art of business or the business of art, there are many nonprofits, and a lot of the people that are receiving seed money is relationship based. I think we have to remember, when we're talking about art and we're talking about business, we're talking about relationships. And so, yeah, I went the LLC route. I have 2 LLCs. It's very easy work. The state of Michigan makes it easy to register your LLC in Michigan.
Super easy.
$50, and then you renew it every year. And so you can go on the LARA website. So Google LARA Michigan, and that will come up. That's something I learned while I worked for the state of Michigan at the Secretary of State.
One other thing I'll quickly note is, sometimes there's certain ideas or certain projects that you sort of need a nonprofit, and so like you said, you want to create those relationships, and you can have like a fiduciary for a nonprofit. Forward Arts, we get approached about a lot of different projects from artists, and sometimes we sort of help them through that process from the administrative end, and they use us as a fiduciary. So there's definitely some organizations out there that are great to work with in that capacity, including Forward Arts.
Yeah, it's a little tricky. Just as a side note too, like in the past few years, the nonprofit organizations have been actually being scrutinized a lot heavier than they have been in the past. So again, I have to co-sign what they said. It's generally easier to be a sole proprietor or to form an LLC and just keep it really simple. You can also just do work under an assumed name, which is extremely easy. I think that's $12 at the county, to fill out that form and then register that, which allows you to actually open up a bank account under that name and to receive checks and payment like via that name. So that's probably like the simplest, I think, out of all of them. But as you go higher, it's a little more complicated, but not much. So kind of a follow-up question to that someone asked was, how does an artist start from scratch, like with $0? How do you invest in yourself when you have no money to invest besides like your sweat equity?
Sweat equity is powerful, by the way. Sweat equity is powerful. I mean, you can trade sweat equity.
The baby don't think so.
The baby doesn't think so.
Baby wants to get paid.
Right.
Baby wants to
Baby
get
needs to
paid.
know.
Right.
It's a bumper sticker, yeah.
Pay me. But I mean, that's a really legit question because there are just so many people who, again, you know, are doodling on paper or they have great ideas for things, but have like zero capital. I mean, it's like any tips? Maybe April, do you have not to put you on the spot.
No,
but-
it's okay. Yes, I would say this whole networking thing, using your friends, you can start somewhere, right? If you're creative, you're doodling, if you're gonna be an entrepreneur and make a business out of your art, you are a hustler, right? Entrepreneurs are hustlers. They don't take no for an answer. If you have a thin skin and, you know, so the question is a little broad. It's hard for me because I don't know what kind of art it is, but there are a ton of resources out there, free resources. Go to all the free networking events. This was free, right? Yeah. Okay, there's a BizGrid on the table out there. Art galleries are free, beg for a job, volunteer somewhere. Yeah. There's lots to do.
Yeah. I think that if you're doodling, that you can sell that doodle. You can always sell that. You can sell that to your mama.
Wait,
She'll give you a 20.
I also like your idea about putting your family to work.
Oh, yes.
I mean, if you're not working with any capital, like there are plenty of people in your family or very close friends or your immediate network, your immediate contacts. Yes. They will help you. They want to see you succeed.
Yeah.
Ask for help, yeah.
Ask for help. Ask for help.
It's so hard to ask for help. Again, like you feel isolated. You feel like no one's going to appreciate this.
Right.
No one cares about this. And it's, you know, we all have egos and we all, you know, I get that. And it's really hard to ask for help for some people or sometimes depending on what it is. But, you know, like what Brent said, I mean, earlier, there's no time for ego. Like you just got to get over it. Just forget about it. Just do it. And after a while, it gets easier. Then, you know, asking for help gets easier. Making those things, you know, after doing anything that's uncomfortable in the beginning is always hard, right? It's like when you start to go running on a jog, and those first 5 minutes suck because your legs feel tired and everything else. But it's because the blood hasn't gotten to your legs yet. And once you start to build that up, you start to build up your muscles, then you can start to do other things. Then you might have some dollars to work with, and you have something to barter with because you helped your mom out by cleaning her house, or your
Sweat
aunt,
equity, right?
Yeah, you helped your aunt out with something, or whatever that is. But yeah, I mean, ask for help.
Okay, cool. Some of these questions are related to those things, so I'm hoping that, you know, whoever asks about a starving artist on a budget, hire other people. I hope that it helped answer that as well. You know, you ask them for help, you beg, and you trade.
Right.
You barter. So someone really did ask a question regarding the trading system and the bartering. So sometimes when you want to stand your ground and you say no, then the response is, well, if you don't do it, someone else will. You know, and you're out of a
That's
gig.
fine.
Okay, so yeah, so it was the question is how do we break that cycle? And I was
You
going to
walk
answer.
away.
Yeah.
You
I
go
mean,
to
find
somebody
another
else.
fool,
Yeah.
right? And then, you know, I think you don't have to take every gig that you get or whatever, every single opportunity. You know, in the beginning, I think it's especially helpful to try and take advantage of almost all of those things. But even in the beginning, I mean, like, you know, Brent said something earlier about respecting, you know, yourself and everything else. Like, you don't have to take every gig. It's okay to turn down some things. You don't have to do it all. But yeah, walk away. It's okay to walk away. It's not a big deal. There'll be other opportunities, you know.
Because your gifts will make room for you. So they'll open up doors for you. You just got to be ready. Like if somebody come up to you and say, yeah, I want to show your work, so send me an artist statement and send me a resume. And you like, what?
Right.
I got to send you, well, my statement is in my work. No, send it written to me what does this artwork mean? I've had that so many times trying to give people shows that some people don't even get shows because they don't want to send me a resume, first of all. They don't want to send me a written artist statement. I mean, how am I supposed to explain this artwork to the people? It's your artwork, right? So if you can't write about it, and anything you write about is right, it's your artwork.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So you always get this when you're a young artist, and I was like that too. I got scared, like I don't want to put it on paper what it means, because then people will always be like, this is what it means. But what if it changed, you know?
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. What it means right then is what it means. So you have to do your paperwork about yourself. Figure out you as an artist, as a painter, singer, whatever. You got to figure out yourself. Why do I do this? How long do I think I want to do this? Do I want to do it all my life? And if nobody ever buys a piece of artwork, will I still make artwork? Right?
Yeah.
Because you should be doing it for yourself.
Yeah.
And that's where your gift will make room for you, will come in. Because if you believe in it, people will believe in it.
I think it's okay to negotiate too. I mean,
Yeah.
You don't always have to completely walk away. You can always come back with, I know a lot of people who they get uncomfortable talking about numbers, and you had mentioned that earlier. And so they don't want to have that conversation, or it's uncomfortable, but it's okay. I mean, we want to have that conversation a lot of times from the event producer and things
And I
like
think
that.
you
You have to have,
as an
yeah.
artist, you
explicit.
have to have that
Exactly.
conversation.
And maybe sometimes you might say, I want to do a show. Can you do a show for $250? Well, maybe I need $400. Well, okay. I know you got a couple extra $100 laying around. Maybe. There's nothing wrong with asking. There's nothing wrong with saying, no, I really need that extra $100. Because more chances that you might get that extra $100.
Right.
And that's a conversation between you and the curator, or you and the promoter. And the others might not have asked that question.
Yeah, if you don't ask, you don't.
If you don't ask,
you
yeah.
don't know.
You know,
You'll
from-
never know.
As someone who is an event producer, or who creates what I do, we do this all the time.
I had this conversation with Adriel.
Right.
He didn't give me the extra money.
Because I do my job. But I mean, sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't, but I'm like, here's what I have. But there's, to all the artists and entrepreneurs, there's nothing that will devalue your worth other than you saying yes to someone who's trying to offer you nothing for it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you didn't even ask, you didn't come back and negotiate. As someone who uses creative services from other people, I expect that there will be some exchange, some negotiating. But I also have, budgetary issues and things that I have to worry about as well, right? I'm trying to make a buck. I'm trying to live off of what I do. But I expect that when I come at you and say, there's no budget for this, that you say, okay, I need $300. And then I can come back and say, okay, well, I can't do that, but meet me halfway. Let's do 200. We're expecting that. If you just let me have you, then you've been had. I mean, so that's, the answer to that question, I think that's really a really, really important question. You have to value what it is that you do, above and beyond everything else. Even if you never intend on selling it to anyone or showing it to anyone or letting anyone hear it or experience it other than you, you have to have some value attached to it. And so when someone else wants to come along and use that, you need to be compensated for that in some way. Don't devalue your work, and don't allow someone else to ever tell you that it's not worth anything. So off that soapbox. Okay, on to the next question. And I think this is a good one. Is there a network? Someone had mentioned before about making online connections using social media. But is there a network besides Facebook, Twitter, and the usual suspects to stimulate collaboration with musicians, galleries, restaurants, other types of artists?
Personally, I think we need a database to know, we kind of have it, but I don't know if the right people are suggesting the right places and the venues and whatnot. But I feel like there needs to be some type of database to know like, where are the places that Yolanda can put her artwork up? And and what are the small boutique shops that can cater to her? And so I'm kind of in favor of like a database, and I don't know if that's an ongoing conversation, but just a database of venues, people, places, and things in Detroit that we care about.
I mean, I would.
Sounds like something for you to do, Dominic.
I mean, I mean, I think it's still networking. I mean, I think we're in such a relationship-based sort of economy right now, more so than maybe we have been in the past. Where you can still connect over Facebook and some of these other things, but me and previous tonight, before tonight, me and Brent never really had an earnest conversation or something. But I'd love to go have a beer with him after this now and talk about how to make those collaborations happen and see those common threads about different coalitions and things like that, because there are people out there trying to build those things. I mean, certainly, I personally created Forward Art specifically for that. Working at the DSO and working at like Movement, two very opposite ends of the spectrum, culture-wise, music-wise, and everything else, like I saw the common threads. No one else was seeing it, but I was seeing this all the time. And I would see things with the Belle Isle, art exhibit and this dance troupe, and those sort of things make sense. So there's definitely people out there. I mean, I think if you take a look at some of the projects that people are doing, and tie into, go have a coffee with one of those people. People are looking for this right now, I feel like. I mean, Detroit's community is growing and we're all trying to support each other. And I think in the past, maybe music was the dominant arts medium here. And I think you're starting to see a lot more funding for the visual arts and dance and some of these other things. So, when you have those other art mediums start to grow and start to explore more things, that creates even more opportunities for musicians and vice versa. You can keep on kind of going back and forth. So I feel like it's out there. I mean, it is a little bit nebulous, but I think if you have a good landscape of the Detroit art scene and sort of keep your pulse on it, you'll start to find those niches or those people, those key contacts, or those people that do have all those different contacts within the industry or know certain artists or knows that other artists. I mean, again, like it's like 1 degree of separation here in Detroit in the arts community. So it should be somewhat fairly easy, I think.
I think another, to add on to this, an important part of that equation is, again, you have to be your own advocate, and you have to get in the habit of announcing yourself as an artist. And I say that because we could be in a room, or we could be at a coffee house, or we could be in a collaborative space. But if I don't know what you do, if I don't know that you're an artist, then we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to have that conversation. But if I'm introduced to you, and again, like I said earlier, if the answer to what is it that you do, what do you do? If it's I work over here at this office, then I don't see how we're going to collaborate. But if your response is, I'm the baddest graphic designer you've ever seen, then we've got somewhere to go with that. So actually, this would probably be our last question. I think it's a good one. What are the 5 top skills or attributes that help arts entrepreneurs find success, whatever success is?
I think the first 5 should be being a kick-ass artist. Be great at what you do. You don't have to be a social media maven and that should be like number 6 or number 1 through 5 is just be a great artist. Be exactly who you are. Trust your voice. Trust your vision. And it's hard to do that. But I mean, there's so many different projects sometimes, and I think we've seen them. That might be the flavor of the week, and it's because they're really popular and things like that. And that's great, but I think the true artist, the true art, the person who's in it for the long haul, I mean, that's going to show over time. And you really got to stay in the basement for 10,000 hours to make sure you don't screw it up. I mean, someone posted something on Facebook earlier today, I think it was Melinda Anderson, about amateurs do something until they get it right, and professionals do it like until they don't get it wrong. I'm forgetting sort of but thank you. So it's not enough to just get it right once. You got to do it 10,000 times so you'll never make that mistake again. You know, be a professional, be an artist. That's what I have to say.
I think you touched on it, is you got to be your own biggest fan, and don't be afraid to market your stuff at every single point, even though I feel like I've always got some crap with me and I'm handing it out to people. I try to be sensitive and know and read the person, you know, like, because it can be obnoxious, believe me, I understand. But if I'm not going to believe in what I do, how's anybody else going to believe in what I do? Yeah. And that goes for all of you guys. You have to believe, and at first you're a little timid, and I get people that come in my class all the time like, I just don't, or I'm afraid somebody's going to steal my idea, or, you know, okay. I mean, you can live in that fear if you want to, but, you know, confidence and being your biggest fan and sharing your stuff and being, you know, marketing, yeah, that's my advice. I don't know if that's 5 things, but.
I would say amplification, like getting it out there, inclusivity, because you want to communicate your artwork to many people. You want to be inclusive. Profitability, and I'll let Jocelyn take my last 2.
Okay, I'll say don't be the largest collector of your own work. Give it to us. Let us enjoy it. Let the world enjoy it. I'll say that.
Cool. I'd like to add to this list, and maybe you can just choose your top 5, but persistence. Once you get out there, once you decide that you're going to go out there, it's not just enough to say who you are, to go to a couple of things. You've got to be persistent, and not like April was saying, sort of not necessarily. You have to gauge how people are, but you have to be persistent and you have to be on it. A lot of things that I've done and been a part of, it's the creative people who were able to be a part of that, they really came from, you know, who is that guy that keeps telling me that he does this? Who is it? It's that person that you think of, you know, and I mean, there's some other criteria if they fit right, you know, but 9 times out of 10, you can't expect people to remember who you are from that one time, that one meeting. It is about, that's part of the whole networking game, and that's part of the game, I should say, just period, is being persistent in reminding people of who you are and what it is that you do. I think that we are slightly over time at this point. I would like to thank everyone, all of the panelists, Jocelyn, Dominic, Brett, April, and you for all of your time. Rhonda, did you want to say something? All right. Big thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adriel and April and Brent and Dominic and Jocelyn, who, when I asked, everybody said yes immediately. And it's not too late for you guys to get on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and tell people about your experience. If you have any other questions, please leave them on that table right outside the door, because we do want to put together some type of electronic site where we have answers going on. We want to keep this conversation going. So thank you so much for coming, and I'm floored at the response. So thank you so much, and have a really good evening. Oh, the gallery is open until 8 o'clock, so you can actually like hang around and look at the exhibition. All right, bye.
Bye.